Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the Live Well channel. So today we have a great guest. Shamon Seals is going to be joining us and we're going to have a really deep conversation. I did want to say up front that there is mention of depression and anxiety throughout this video, and also very briefly the topic of suicide. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that disclaimer out in case that's something that you're not interested in watching or hearing about. It isn't throughout, but it is mentioned, and I didn't want to cause any triggers for anyone. So I just want to make sure I said that. Today, Shamon and I are going to be talking about what happens when you actually take the time to stop and look inward, to get some of those answers that you didn't even know maybe you were searching for, and a lot about his journey over the last year or two. He does an amazing job at sharing his story, and his vulnerability and his courage to do so are just unmatched and encourages all of us to take that step towards healing. And so without further ado, let's hear from Shamon. All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. So excited to have our guest here today. We are greeted by Shamon Seals. Shamon is a recently retired Air Force veteran, we can say that now, and he has served for over 24 years, as we talked about, over 24 years of military experience. He's now currently stepped into a fellowship with Snap-on Tools, and so we'll hear a little bit about that. And he's just going to do all the things to set the pathway forward for his next endeavor. But I'll let Shamon tell a little bit more about himself. So over to you.
Well, thank you first off for having me on. I was so much anticipating having the opportunity to just sit and share some stories and answer some tough questions possibly and share with your audience. So I appreciate that opportunity. But yeah, I'm in the process of starting SkillBridge and on my way to retirement, which my ceremony is in April and my official retirement date is 1 July. Been in for 24 years, like you mentioned, originally from the South Side of Chicago. And I just got back here to the Illinois area. So right outside Scott Air Force Base in O'Fallon, which is probably about 20 minutes from downtown St. Louis for those who may not have been to this area. And I have been here a combination of maybe about 12 years between different assignments back and forth. But I just got back here after leaving Joint Base San Antonio in Texas, New Year's Eve. So, yeah, I'm ready for the next adventure, having fun, trying to get reintegrated to the family, being away, you know, the impact it has had on my personal life and professional life. So, but yeah, no questions are off the table. I'm excited.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. Well, listen, you just set the stage.
All right.
Oh, that sounds good. So I do want to tell, like, for our viewers and our listeners, you know, I know that I frequently have people who have served in the military on the channel. But these discussions, I just want to make sure everyone, like, these things that we talk about, and it's becoming ever more clear to me, they're relevant for all of us. So we talk about well-being, the umbrella under well-being, resilience, taking care of ourselves. It just so happens that my field of connection are people in the service. But with some of the things we're going to talk about today with Shamon, like, definitely it's gonna hit, it's gonna resonate, because it's relevant to everybody at a certain point in their life. And really kind of segue into what we're going to talk about is, I really want to talk to Shamon about his what it looked like for him to make a decision to pivot in the perception of early from some people. Some people, you know, there's sort of this plan of a career that is laid out, and it looks a certain way on paper for a lot of people. But Shamon decided to kind of pivot from that. And I want to talk to him about what happened in that decision-making process and maybe what changed. So what changed for you, and really take us through maybe how it even came to be. What, because you were going one way, right? And then something. So talk to us about that. What was it that brought you?
Yeah, well, I never thought I would join the military and retire to start with. Okay. So the fact that I'm here is one in a million, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. That is not to say that if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it, because I would. But the latter part of my career, as approaching 20, I kind of knew that I was ready to retire at 2021-ish. And as I got promoted to senior, and seeing the trajectory of my career, the possibilities, things that I hadn't really had on my radar became somewhat interesting. Almost like an athlete playing sports that said, hey, man, I never reached the playoffs or the Super Bowl, but I want to get a chance to see what that feeling is like. Maybe just the possibilities, but not really fully understanding the level of commitment and effort and impact it would have on you if I decided to do that. So what changed for me and making a decision to retire abruptly are several things. I took this last assignment knowing that I was going to retire because I left here in August of 21, but I got the assignment to go to Joint Base San Antonio in March of 21. And so I knew that what I had experienced during that time, leading up to the assignment notification, was I had some negative things happen to my career. And I knew it would have a lingering impact in terms of promotion, job assignments, etc. And so I felt in the military, with a little bit of time and things that we do control, that it would highly influence my ability to enjoy the career that I really want to see play out in a possible way. And I knew that the impact of what happened in my professional arena with making a social media piece and the influence that I had reflected negatively on my EPR, that the chances for being promotion were slim to none. And that's okay. So I took the assignment with knowing that even though their promotions may be far few and in between, that I wanted to retire on my own terms. So I left. My family, my two boys said that they wanted me to retire. My wife said it was okay for me to go. And I'm thinking that she really meant that. My boys telling me that they wanted me to retire, I understood why. Mm-hmm. But personally, I decided to go anyway because I wanted them to really be able to look back years from now and think, man, I wonder why my dad didn't retire when we told him or asked him to. And so a part of me wanted to stay, but a part of me wanted to go because I wanted to teach them how important it was for them to make their own decisions about where life stops and starts for them. Because they had to be eventually happy with that decision, and it didn't displace that decision on anyone else. Like, oh, I retired because of you all, and I never got a chance to figure out how my career could have ended differently. So I went. And then throughout that 10-year, I knew I was going to be there about years, and about a year into it, which was about May, shy of a year. Was it? Because this happened in 22. Yeah, shy of a year. So May of 2022, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. And so, when I had to go through the rehab and the surgery and having help from my youngest son, having help from my wife when she visited, it really put me in a place of like, man, I can't do the small things for myself anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm not really enjoying work because it's just a combination of meetings. It's just a combination of paperwork and where I should be and nothing fulfilling. And so I like, why am I keep showing up if I'm spending countless hours where I'm unfulfilled? And it dawned on me, just kept playing my mind while I'm rehab. I'm like, well, you made a choice to stay here. You made a choice to commit and serve in an unfulfilled way. And the only thing that you felt, worth it was being connected to the people. And so the hard thing for me was to let go of the relationships and the people. But once I broke my foot and had to go through the therapy, I started thinking about, okay, well then what is what quality of life would I have within my body years from now? Because I'm unable to make a decision that's in the best interest of me right now. Yeah. If you're not fulfilled and you're not physically able to do the things that you want to do, and you have other desires and passions that are untapped because you don't have the time, then what are you waiting on? And so that along with going through therapy and my therapist helping me become more decisive about that one thing that had been looming for 2 or 3 years is what pushed me over the edge 1 July or 7 July-ish of this past year when I clicked the button to retire. Mm-hmm. And so sure, it may have took me off that beaded path of, hey, if you keep going, you might have a chance. To me, I say that may be true. I just didn't want the chance anymore.
Okay. So question on now looking back in hindsight, when you made the decision to go, when your wife and your kids said, hey, retire, and you were like, no, I need to make this decision for myself. I'm not ready. Looking back now, knowing what you know now, did you make that decision for different reasons than you thought you were? Like, was the reality of why you made that decision different than what you thought it was at the moment?
No.
No.
There were
Okay.
there were so many hidden truths, right? That were not connected to just to the professional arena. We're tied to the personal, right? My lack of feeling valued at home, or feeling heard at home, understood, appreciated, truly supported, but didn't have the language or the courage. And I would say courage, then the language. I didn't have the courage, then the language to stand up inside myself and tell them, hey, why it was easy for me to continue taking these assignments and going here and detaching myself from the family. And I rather dealt with some of those demons on my own, opposed to in front of them, because at least the four walls and the people I was connected to at work didn't always make me feel as if like I was displaced in my own home. Okay. So that was the truth that I realized being by myself, is trying to get away from, okay, got it, that's the reason why you left, but then let's sit with unpacking some other reasons personally as to why you truly left.
Do you find that, like, because you're mentioning that, when you had to stop, when maybe you were physically disconnected because of your injury from the work that you had to do, it had to stop, you had to slow down. Did you find that was sort of the blessing that you needed in the way to kind of let you hear what you needed to hear? Or did you yes, talk to me a little bit about
absolutely
that.
Yeah, if that didn't happen, I didn't fully realize. I felt small bit. I didn't fully realize I was on my way to killing myself. Easy. And not like, hey, I'm going to commit suicide, but hey, either that because of depression, or more likely I'm going to stress myself out because I don't know how to stop myself. I looked through a lens, everything in life was for me is sports, competitive. Like, and I'm the type of thought process, even when I would tell you to the moment that I left, I asked my wife when making a decision about taking an assignment, I said, hey, I need your real thoughts and opinion. Like, I don't see myself as a coach or a coordinator or general manager. I'm a player on the field. And so players on the field in high school, college, football, and that's my background. We're going to play until you take us off the field. It doesn't matter about broken bones or back, right? We're going to find a way to will ourselves to play beyond our limits. And I don't know any better. So I'm asking you, for the person that maybe know a little bit better than I'm willing to tell myself right now, it's time to go. She said go.
Yeah, that hits me pretty hard, because I when you say, we might not be having this conversation right now had circumstances not kind of shifted you. It's almost like for me anyway, in mine wasn't an Achilles heel. It was depression and anxiety. And so it was like this jolt of like, wake up, you're sleepwalking through life. You are people pleasing. You're trying to do for everyone and do nothing for you. And it's done. You're done. You can't do it anymore. I physically couldn't do it anymore. I physically and mentally couldn't do it anymore. You physically and mentally couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But you didn't know. And for me, I am not going to speak for you, but for me, I didn't know what that next thing was. I just knew I had to breathe. Like, I just knew I had to stop and breathe. And by the way, you were physically removed because of your injury. I was physically removed at the same time. I'm seeing parallels here, Shamon.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. So it's interesting because I took the next job because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, like, what else am I going to do? That's the next thing everyone's telling me I'm supposed to be doing. But I knew like 5% of what I was doing, what my job entailed, inspired me. The other 95% I was just doing because I wanted that 5%. Yeah. And so it was like, once that stopped, you pulled the 5% away from me, I had all the time to kind of figure out, is this even really what you should be doing? And so anyway, I draw a parallel from your kind of disconnect and ability to stop all the noise around you in order to figure that out. So when I don't know if this is a hard question, but when you got injured and you started that process, was it then that you decided to reach out for mental health therapy, not just physical therapy?
No, actually, I had already started. So I started in April. So maybe I want to say February when I did my PHA, and you go through the questionnaire and stuff like that online to say, hey, do you want to seek this? Traditionally, I want to say throughout my entire career, I always said, no, I'm good, whether returning from deployment or not. Like, I'm all right. If I want to talk to somebody, I talk to somebody. But I just say, I'm always been a big proponent and advocate for mental health. My brother struggles with some issues in that area and is proud to say that he's no longer ashamed of it, but he still deals with it and a way to help others. And so I said, hey, man, if I've been advocating for this, why am I not actually utilizing the resources that are right there? And it doesn't matter if I feel like I'm in a dire situation, but just why can't I just say, hey, I need help in a proactive way? Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and they set me up with a therapist, and I only had one real requirement out of it. It pretty much sounded just like I did when I just, started this, to say, ask me anything that's going to make me uncomfortable, make it tough and difficult for me, because that's the only area that I'm going to grow. And don't worry about my feelings. I don't need you to worry about my feelings. I got enough people in my life to worry about my feelings. But if you're not biased against who I am, ask the questions that's going to have me sit with them for a while. And then I can no longer point the finger at someone else. I have to really sit with it.
On that note, I have to interject and tell you, I was having a conversation with someone that I'm very close to recently, and this person's hesitant to step into therapy. And it was, why would I talk to somebody who doesn't even care about me or know me? And I said, that's the point. Like, that is the point. Like, so this is my, 2-second advocacy for seeking out mental health assistance, because sometimes you need that objective, displaced perspective instead of someone that's so knee deep in it with you, and that truly helped me so much on the journey of figuring out. It's so interesting that you went to therapy proactively and you found it to be so helpful. So it's not just when you're at the end of the ropes to go, like, you went and you started to maintain your health in a different way. And I think that is, wow, that's advocacy right there. That's huge. And from that, you were able to kind of uncover things you didn't even expect.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not even close, but I mean, they were absolutely necessary. Like, just me sharing with you the things that I told my wife before I took the assignment to go to JBSA. I never even stopped to ask myself, why am I unable to stop or remove myself from the field of play, knowing that death is upon the heels of me? Mm-hmm. Is that not something within you that you have the inability to do? We need to sit with that for a while, right? Because if you didn't have a coach to the side or a general manager who's willing to pull you out, when are you going to say enough is enough? I never even stopped to thought, because I just only had a one-track mind. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And it had to deal with me being around so much death at an early age. And so it made the atmosphere of the military be very easy for me until I did Honor Guard in 2005 to 7, where I buried over 200 something people. So I started to see the world slightly different. And so I made an even deeper commitment that I could do this. And in so many ways, it kind of felt like I was on borrowed time. I escaped death. I thought I was going to die early. And so I was like, hey, this ain't my time anyway. If I'm in, I'm in. I'm prepared to come home with a headstone. But it didn't dawn on me these things to put myself in a situation. So I really believe it was necessary, because had I not gone, there's a chance that I would not have asked for help. Yeah. Had I not gone, it wouldn't expose these things that I had to answer. I had to answer to myself about why I did not feel the courage to speak up for myself professionally and personally in certain areas. Even though that from the surface, people can see me advocate for a lot of things for them, but unable to do the same for myself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what so many of us, people who are, and you can label them anything you want, overachievers, people pleasers, those who just type A, like, there's so many labels, but the people who really do want to be in the service of others, that we are blinded at times to the fact that if we are not in service of ourselves first, and I don't mean the canned quote, I mean really acknowledging our own needs, our own personal boundaries, what's important to us, what we value. Like, if we don't pay attention to that first, then we're actually doing a disservice to the people we so greatly want to help. And that was a huge revelation for me when I realized, wow, I've only been helping people and they feel the love and they feel like it's coming from me, but and they've only been getting 50% of me. Like now
Right.
now that I give to me 100%, everybody's getting all of it. And I've showed up so differently. I don't know if did you notice that when you started to like look inward?
I mean, in part, yes. I mean, there's still some conflict within because there's an adjustment to what was, what is, and what's becoming. Right. So all of those things are still in me. Right. So, and that's the challenge, to let those things go that were and in this moment and but is in passing, only to kind of focus on the now and what's becoming. And that's a challenge if that's not the environment that you've grown up in. That's not the conversations or circle. That's not the energy and people that you surrounded yourself by. So then when you reintroduce yourself to yourself about who you are becoming, when you share that with the world, you have to be okay with some of the closest people in your circle, family included, may not be ready to receive you, may not be okay with going where you're trying to go. And so you have to also be willing to say, all right, well, how do I deal with that? Because that conflict is going to create like, do I really need all that? Do I need to be that to be my authentic self? Right. And so if you're not careful, because it's an unconscious bias, within yourself, you're reset to your default mechanisms, your way of thinking, and you don't even know it. But if you're not fully aware, you're going through these emotions, whether it's in your personal relationships. And that's what I'm talking about right now, opposed to the professional piece, because the professional is easy. Once you click retirement and you're done, like there's no going back for me. But within the relationship, it's like, man, I'm sorry, I'm not giving myself the best. Giving myself the best has really nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It has all to do with what I wasn't being honest about within myself. And I know it impacts you. But I can't live a subdued life, and that's untrue to me, in order to make you and everyone else around me feel better. I can do that, but I'm dying on the inside. Are you okay with me dying slowly, which we all are? But I mean, do you realize that, hey, it's taking life off of my, years off my life? And I'm here, but I'm really not here. Because I'm not able to experience the fullness of life unless it's through your lens, through your story.
Yeah. That's hard.
It is, because we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about it. If this has only happened for me over less than a year, and I'm going on 45, what have I really been doing? All these other things that are superficial and are of importance, and the connections are real and genuine, but like you said, how much more could I give myself? Because now you can't have these expectations that others are going to give back to you the same way you give to them. That wasn't their job.
Yeah. Oh,
You
sorry. What did you just say? That wasn't what?
That wasn't their job.
Not their job.
Their job isn't to fill your cup. Right? I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, I want to be able to give in order to get, but I'm learning I don't really even know how to unconditionally love.
Yeah.
So there's so many areas that begins to be unpacked. And this young lady, Miss G, through my therapist, has been able to kind of just, first I need you to say it's okay. It's okay that you didn't know these things. It's okay that you were doing the things for the right reasons. And I don't need you to critique yourself as if like you did something wrong. You did what you thought you knew was best at the time. But now that you know different, now that it might be a possibility that others are experiencing you differently than how you perceived it to be, you can sit with it for a while. And even if you don't get a clear answer, it's okay. Yeah. Now you have the choice to do something about it. Mm-hmm. That in itself has to be liberating. That is still your choice. Because life tomorrow doesn't have to look like it did yesterday, nor does it have to feel that way by your choices.
Right. And I think that's what holds people from acknowledging some of these truths within them, is the fear of what's going to change, right? Because and if I'm being 100% honest, which I'm not sure that I've even said this publicly, I think there's been that voice has been inside me for over a decade, of, you need to pay, I'm here, you need to pay attention to what I'm saying. And I was like, nope, busy. Let me just do all the things and be all the people to everybody so I can shut you up so that I can just continue to remain the same. And obviously then it couldn't be quiet anymore, but I can empathize with that fear of, if I actually stop and acknowledge what I know deep within me is a truth, then that means I have to face what comes next. And I got to ask you for, do you agree that that could be a fear for people? And if so, what kind of thing can you tell folks? Because we're all still on this journey. There is no guru on this earth that I can call and say, hey, you know everything, right? So we're still on the journey, but what at least, shared experience or encouragement can you give somebody who's just afraid to even stop and listen?
Well, I do believe it does make it difficult, to the point where it can cause paralysis, and a bit of, it causes you to be indecisive in either one or multiple areas that are important for you. For me, I think seeing myself become a shell of myself and no longer attached to these positions, a uniform, a large, massive team. It was a bit of a challenge, but to move beyond that, the only thing that I can give people to encourage them is really stick with doing the work within inside yourself to be uncomfortable. Saying I'm sorry, I forgive myself for what I didn't know, for not having the courage, for not listening to myself, not being still enough to hear myself, and not having the courage to do the things that I wanted to do in my personal and professional life. Because we've always made these adjustments and we've moved the boundaries and standards within our own lives, but we uphold the ones that are put upon us. So we adhere to everyone else's standards very well. But when you ask us, what are your standards and boundaries? You don't have them because they mirror the standards that everyone put upon you.
Right.
And so when you do the work within inside yourself, there is a sense of liberation if you give yourself time, because you get a chance to reestablish the boundaries, the standards, the expectations of yourself first.
Yeah.
Of yourself, not to put on to other people. And for us in the military, that's a practice. We're going to put these expectations and boundaries in place so you can form.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't really know what it's doing to them psychologically, emotionally, physically. Right. It's just a way of thinking. You're going to do this and this is what's going to create success. Mm-hmm. But you put those things upon yourself, and then you allow people to choose to be around you based upon what you have said, other than the boundaries, the expectations, or how you move. And it's okay for them to have different ones. But the energy that you create from, liberating yourself that says, hey, look, I love you. I care about you. I want us to succeed. But for me, it's got to look like this.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't impede on you. Yours shouldn't impede on me. But as long as you respect those boundaries, I think we can vibe. Mm-hmm. And so you either attract or push away the people who aren't meant to be in your life just because of your standards and your boundaries.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to do that, in the sense of like acknowledging that not everybody's meant to be there all the time for life. Like that's a hard thing for a lot of people to kind of grasp. But I was listening to, I forget who was saying it, but they were likening this analogy. They were using the analogy of a play. So you go to the theater and you watch a play and you have multiple characters. You're the main character, and multiple characters are coming in and out each scene. Some are villains, some are supporting, some are, there throughout the whole play. Not everybody in your life is meant to play that next to you role, right? You are the only one that's going to be in your life for your life, So that analogy was like, yes, that's exactly right. But we kind of get like, well, I want to do right by this person, so I'm going to appease that person in the way that they want so that they stay. And that could be detrimental.
You don't want to go there.
Maybe you don't want to go.
You don't want to go there with identifying the insecurities within ourselves and reasons why we do things consciously and unconsciously to keep people in our lives permanently when they were only intended to be there temporarily. And it has all to do, it's tied back to your insecurities, our insecurities. In my opinion, I think it's tied back to our insecurities. It's tied to trauma and fear. So insecurities, trauma, and fear will keep you reaching to hold on. And the whole theme around taking this last assignment was letting go. It will force you unconsciously to hold on to things that were meant to be let go years ago. And so when you're looking at where you are physically and emotionally, and you feel like, why am I going through this over and over again? It's because you keep holding on to stuff that you wasn't meant to keep bringing with you. So you want a different environment. You want to see and experience a different life, but you can't because you're around the wrong people. You got the same thinking. You got the same feelings. Is that not them? Is it more you?
Yes, it's always us. Listen, the secret to all the things, it's you. I was just telling a friend of mine, I was like, if ever you, and this is, I'm going to go there for a second because I know some people are going to be like, no, that's not right. But it's my truth, right? So my truth is, if I ever feel angry, if I ever feel sad, happy, any emotion that I am going through, I am choosing that emotion. I am processing whatever I'm processing, and I'm feeling that. In fact, so much so, I believe this to be true, that I no longer say to my own children, you made me upset. You made me sad. You made me disappointed. Yeah. No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
I chose that. So now my verbiage to them is, I say to them, when this happened, I processed through, and my first instinct was to feel sad. Right? That is, I'm owning my own emotion. I'm not putting that on my kids, right? Because and this is how we're all raised, right, Shamon? Like when we're raised with that, we then think we can control other people's emotions. And so now we behave a certain way to make sure someone is not mad at us or, upset, disappointed. And so now we're trying to manage the world's emotions instead of dealing with our own stuff. So that's been huge for me. But it's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. My counselor says thoughts, feelings will always provoke your behavior. Mm-hmm. And if you're always, in a place where you're trying to dissect someone's behavior and correct it, you're never going to get anywhere because you haven't really accessed the feelings and you haven't caused them to ask the question deep enough. Mm-hmm. What thoughts they are having that's driving their feelings, because the feelings from what you're seeing are not necessarily a fact. It may be true for them, but if you peel back the onion to ask them enough about what they're thinking about, what got them there, it's likely that's driving their feelings.
Yeah. Those are when real dialogue happens, and you start to get to the root cause of some things, and I know we're primarily right now talking about, I think we're talking about personal relationships, excuse me, I mentioned my kids and we're, people in our lives and things like that. And I think that's so, such a critical step in the process to figuring out. And I got to a couple places where I'd have that dialogue with people, and then we decided, I'm not talking romantically, friends. I'm just talking about friends. Like, we decided that we were no longer in alignment with where we were going. This is a whole nother conversation. We need to have.
But it's still tied. It's still tied to the military, whether it's the individual supervision, the leadership style of a unit. Because when you think about, people responding to one's behaviors or actions, really take the time in depth, right? Because it is very complex and looks different for every individual. We're not taught to take the time to really spend identifying. One, we're not that level of professionals, but to really try to work through, hey, what were you thinking? Mm-hmm. And is this something that you came in with? And how is it impacting you to feel this way all the time? And do you see that your energy is off, or other people are impacted by what you're doing, what you're saying? Right. And we're trying to correct a behavior with the wrong tool. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we're being too severe with our actions in response to what we're seeing, because we are not really in touch with our own feelings and thoughts. Right. We're just responding.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, like, with regard to the military service, yeah, you can conform in the outward behaviors, in the way, the uniform you wear, the way you wear your hair. Like, those are all things that we can conform to. But inside all of that is still an individual person, is still someone who processes information very differently, or who has a history of fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And so you're 100% right. You know, that is relevant and necessary everywhere. You know, even civilian organizations, when you enter into an organization, maybe you joined a law firm, right, or Amazon or wherever,
Yeah.
you're conforming to that culture within that organization, but you're still you. And so that dialogue could really uncover a lot of important stuff.
Yeah, there's so much anger I had. I was hoping, like, even the command chief here, like the MASCOM command chief, I was so mad, like, just from the byproducts of my own actions and the response that I got from him at the time. It was hard for me not to take it personally. And so I was hoping, right, just in my feelings, I was hoping that I would catch him off to the side. Like, I'm hoping you say something incorrect to me, because this is my opportunity to act a fool. And so I noticed that right, because you take my kindness as a weakness. You're gonna joke with me and talk to me like we boys, we partners. Like, say something to me off bus name it. And I'm in this whole military career right now, I'm gonna embarrass you in front of everybody. Violent. And then I was like, oh wow, where is that coming from? Like, that's not like, oh. And so when I started being short-paced at work, and I started, having less care, and I was like, okay, this is becoming unhealthy. I don't want that. That's not the level of service and commitment that I've kind of got into. So it's time for me to kind of step away. And
okay, so I want to hit on that, because I think I laughed because all I had seen in my head was Shamon going, I wish he would. I wish he would.
Hey, because I get a chance to take all that energy and rage that I've been containing. Yes. And I've got one moment to continue to, black out and then just say, I'm sorry.
And feel justified. And you feel you feel.
You brought this on yourself.
Yes, 100%. And the reason I stopped you there is because I really want to address all of us who I think that's a natural feeling when we don't address what's really underneath. We really contribute to that toxicity around us that we proclaim we hate. But we've not paid attention to the things we need to address. And we really, this is a real thing. People truly feel that they're in the right to be able to tell someone off because they deserved it. That person did X, Y, Z. I'm not here to judge you or to say that, that's not the case. What I am here to say is, if you really reflected on how you got to that level, like Shamon, you're saying you did, you'd be like, hang on, is that how I want to lead this life? Like, what got me there? And like, that's not, So yeah, it's a real thing.
And we go to jail.
Go to jail. I'm glad you didn't. I'm really glad.
It had a lot of talk, but it really wasn't him. It was the things that I failed to say in multiple areas of my life, right? That compiled, and it was waiting beneath the surface for the perfect opportunity to be unleashed upon someone who really didn't deserve it. And then I looked at it as like, okay, well, maybe he's hurting, right? Because a person in that level of leadership, not to have a level of compassion for someone who can identify through their own family that there's disparities and emotions tied. And sometimes we make mistakes being human. And he never put his arm around me. He never reached his hand out to say, are you okay? Opposed, he said, hey, I can burn your house down. I can tear your whole career down. I can burn it up if I wanted to. And then treated me like I was less than, or dismissed me, like that my existence didn't matter. And so everything that I was carrying up until that point gave me reason to justify, if you say something else to me out of line, we're going to have a whole misunderstanding. I don't give a damn about your stripes. I don't give a damn about your position. You're not going to disrespect me as a man. I guarantee you to this day, that man will never approach me. Never in his life. And I hope he gets a chance. He would never approach me with that level of dismissiveness, because now I know, okay, regardless how I feel, I'm not going to allow your actions to control my response. I'm going to love on you, and I'm going to pray for you. And I'm going to ask you to pray for me, because I'm not perfect either. And I was just in a bad spot, bad day, week, month. And I hope that you can forgive me for what I did and what you think it meant to you. And I'm going to ask, in my spirituality, my God, to, forgive me and give me the grace and humility that he gave to me. And since it's not mine, I'm required to give it to you and wish you the best. I have no ill feelings, because those things were a part of pushing me to make the decision to retire. It had less to do with the personal differences and our approach and our communication style. I wasn't listening to what was happening. Yeah. I was listening to who was telling me something that aggravated me. I wasn't listening to what the earth was telling me and say, hey, it was time. Using this experience to say, hey, you're not going to make a decision. I'm going to push you. Oh, you still not listening? I'm going to break that foot. Oh, you need, until you leave, because your purpose is not tied to your position in your ring. It was tied to me being vulnerable enough to do this thing in a different way.
Wow. I honestly couldn't think of a better way to kind of segue us out, because that's everything. Your purpose is not tied to your position. Like, that's incredible. And so what I just kind of want to hit a couple things that you just said, because it's so relevant. But you had said, you talked about, it wasn't him, and it was the things you weren't listening to. And, I believe strongly, and I've read this, and it hits me to the core of, we can't give what we don't have. And we can't give empathy and grace if we don't give that to ourselves, if we're not doing it for ourselves. And I feel like since you've made this transition and this transformation in your own self, you have the empathy for him. Now you're viewing it as, what is he struggling with that he has to be so disconnected, right, from people? Then you look at things totally different instead of placing the blame. And that's because I go back to something you said that I put about 10 exclamation points after on my little notebook. And that was, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not knowing. Forgive yourself for the things that you maybe neglected. My greatest bout of self-forgiveness came in the way of neglecting myself, and how I just beat myself up for months over that concept of what I did to myself. And then I thought, I made a decision that I'm going to be my greatest supporter, and I'm going to offer myself grace first, and I'm going to be the first to accept it. And so it really sounds like that story and that transformation for you has really been a light in your life.
It's a lonely walk, Mary. It's a lonely walk. And I heard somebody say, if you can finish this life or experience as clean as you were when you came in, that's the goal. When you came in here, you were clean. You were pure, as close as the pure can get. If you can leave this life at whatever time that is, as clean and as pure, then maybe that's the goal. And if you have many memories and experiences of fun and left a legacy for folks that have enjoyed that experience with you, I'm okay with having a lonely walk. Because that walk is not really as lonely as you think it is, unless you don't know who you are.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. I think we need to stop. That's just so good. So good. It's been such an honor to have you here. And I appreciate your candor and your vulnerability and your reflection, because folks don't know this, but prior to us recording, we were talking about sharing that part of ourselves more and the good that it can do. When you show up and you share the seemingly bad part as well, or lessons learned, that is healing for both the sharer and the recipient in that process. And so you did that today. You did that today through this whole conversation. So thank you. If people want to contact you, Shamon, is it LinkedIn? Is there an email? Like, how would you want, if people want to just kind of reach out to you?
They can find me on LinkedIn just by typing in Shamon Seals and doing a search. You can find me that way. You can find me. I have 2 pages on LinkedIn. One's the USA Mortgage. You'll see me on that way as well. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then also my email. So if they need to reach out to me, they can find me on one of those social media platforms.
Awesome. That sounds great. And we'll put that stuff below the video as well. And just a big old thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us and for hanging out with me and Shamon while we talked through some really, really important things. I hope that it caused some time for reflection for you, and maybe it encouraged you to take some time to do that inward search to kind of see what it is that you really want out of your life, what is your purpose, and to really dive into it, because we really only get one shot. And bottom line, no one's getting out of this thing alive, so we really should be making the most of it. And I hope that's what you got from it. Thanks again for being here. As always, be well and live well.